Hey,
Hey,
what's up?
we're back at it again for
Again.
another PTC Pink Text Chat, where we talk about everything from A to Z. Yes, finances, relationship. We sprinkle in some adulthood and
30s.
the third. And this conversation is gonna be very heavily on adulting and 30s. So
Mm-hmm.
let's dive in. Let's dive in.
Yeah, let's do
So
that.
I'm going to introduce the topic we're talking
Mm.
about today. We're talking about freezing our eggs.
Ooh,
And we are single, single girlies. And um, this is like a topic that kind of like pops up in my like last, I want to say about a year and a half, 2 years. I've been thinking about it, because the older you are, your eggs, it's not
they don't
youthful.
egg like they supposed to be egging.
But I'm trying to
Yeah,
find a way to like lightly
it's
deliver
not
that, but I
giving what it's supposed to have gave. They
yeah.
don't do what they're supposed to do.
But,
And that's partly because you're not allowing it to do what it's supposed to do. So it's kind of your fault too. But yeah, at the end of the day, you're not using your eggs. You're not
mhm,
using them. You're letting
no,
them go every month. You're not using them.
right. Uh, And I
So
have to
yeah.
like before we like really just kind of dive into this, I will say this: at different like periods of my life, I felt very different about having kids. So this topic we're
Same.
talking about
Same.
freezing the eggs. Like when I was 25, I was like craving. I wanted kids. I wanted to be a mom. I wanted the belly. I wanted all of that. I wanted the partner.
I was
I
the
wanted to
opposite.
do that. And then, time goes. Then when I was 26, I'm looking up and I'm like, I remember that time very clearly because I was talking to someone at that time and things
Hmm.
were not popping with
Okay.
us. So
Okay.
and I remember that because it was Thanksgiving and I remember just
Mm.
like, I'm
They
never
love
gonna
to break
be.
up around the holidays, don't they?
I remember like looking back
Yeah.
and I was like I invested time in this person. I invested feelings in this person,
Yeah.
and I'm 26 now. I felt at that time. I felt my like biological clock was ticking, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I was 26, and then I'm
Which
like,
is still
okay, well,
very
it's not gonna happen.
young, by the way.
Now
Very.
looking back, now I realize
You
that.
were tripping bad. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now,
Uh-huh.
uh, like that clock was. And then, like, time goes by, I'm still single. And then I hit, my 30s. And I was in California, and I was like, I don't know if, like, do I want to have kids? Do I want to be a mom? That feeling has
You're starting to
evolved
ask
with,
yourself like heavy hitting questions like, do you? Yeah.
do you?
Yeah.
Do I want
Yeah.
to be a mom? Do I want to be running after a kid and I'm pushing 40 like, I don't know if I want to do that.
That ain't it.
Oh, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
No, 100%. I get that. I think we're a little bit opposite. So when I was younger, in my teens, and I mentioned teens because in our time, teenage pregnancy was very, very real. It was a big deal. Do you remember the pregnancy pact?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, the whole idea of having kids was introduced to me very young, even though I was not interested in having children in my teen years or anything like that. There was still like this fear of teenage pregnancy in my time. And so the idea of kids has always been kind of around since I was very young. I'm now 31. But like in my teen years, I was like, definitely no. In my early 20s, late 20s, it was still heavy no. Um, shout out to the Power of No episode. I was very serious, heavy on the no. For kids, I didn't want kids at all. I wasn't interested. I did flirt with the idea from time to time when I was in a relationship, but like deep down, I I didn't see that. I didn't want that. Um so we're opposites on that. Like it's just never really was a big deal to me. I wasn't thinking about
It wasn't a factor.
planning. No. I always envisioned myself having like four dogs and being like the rich auntie without any
I
kids. Like that was my vibe, and I was so here for it. I claimed that for my life.
yeah.
I wrote that over my life. Many times my mom would ask me, like, do you plan on having kids? I'm like, no. Like, the answer is no. I was very hard on that no. Now I'm older. I think maybe the past 3 4 years, well, I don't know, four is pushing it, maybe 3 2 3 years, I started to revisit that idea and my answer changed. And now I would like to have one kid.
But
One. I'm open to two, but one. One is good. I was a single, like I was the only child for a long time until I was 12. So, I'm fine with it. I do think the idea of having a second kid would be nice. Not leave
yeah,
that like child alone or whatever.
yeah.
But I say that to say this. I just never gave it much thought in all of those years when I was young, and I probably really should have been thinking about it, planning for it, at least considering it. I was completely oblivious and just not interested, like at all. And now you mentioned the biological clock. Now it's like ironically I've changed my
Yeah.
mind. It's like, girl, you're in your 30s now. And I highlight that because I always said I don't want kids, but if I ever did, I didn't want to have kids in my 30s. I was I was heavy on that. I was like, I'm not interested in being in my 30s and having no kids. And now look at me.
I mean, like, honestly, I think if I was to have one, I would, well, if I would want to be established. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
for
Can I take
sure.
care? Can I provide a
For sure.
home? This, and that. And it's funny you bring that up, the age thing. Recently, a class named Mendenas. I probably pronounced that wrong, but
Okay.
anyway, she said that like she had her first kid at 40, and she felt
Mhm.
good about it because she could give them everything, like the attention, the time, the da 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 da. So,
Well,
like, no
Ashanti,
regrets.
the singer Ashanti,
Shawty,
she's like in her 40s, I think early
her 40s
40s,
too.
and she's pregnant now. So, I mean, I think
So that,
times are changing and women are starting to wait longer to have children and not feel so pressed to have children
on the
by a
timeline.
certain age. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said about that and why. I'm sure the economy has something to do with it, but there's been a shift in mindsets. I think of women and probably men too, but definitely women of I don't have to hurry and do this so young and give up my life, my career, my whatever to have children instead. And I feel like that was always something that was in the back of my mind. So when I was growing up and when I was younger, I was very focused on my career, what my future was going to look like. And I was heavy on, I have to be financially independent and ready to do this no matter what. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I have a kid and I'm left to raise it alone, God forbid, and I can't do that. I didn't want to set myself up for failure, and I didn't want to fail my child. You know what I mean? And it's not to offend anyone or make it seem like single parents are failing their children. Please don't take it that way. I'm just saying for myself, financially, I wanted to be able to do that without help because I never wanted to
How
struggle.
heavy on with that? How
I just
heavy
didn't
on
want to
with that?
struggle. Yeah.
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 I mean, I feel like for me, like I said, different times in my life, I had different feelings about it. You know what I mean? I'm 33 now. I will be 34. So we're going to discuss that in a minute. But my mom had me so young. You know what I mean? And I
Mm-hmm.
think a little part of me was like, if I was to ever have kids, even though my mom had me young, like 19 to about to be 20, and I was like, if I had a kid, I want to be a young mom. I think I like kind of
Same.
idolized that in a way
Same. I did too.
without realizing how heavy it
What
was,
that
like
means.
without realizing what my mom sacrificed. You know what I mean? My mom
Boom.
sacrificed a
A lot.
lot, and my mom was like a hard worker, you know? And she had a house, she had a home, she had a car, she had this. And I didn't, like, now looking back, I didn't realize how much my mom did give up. You know, my mom gave up on traveling. My mom gave up on just living life for her,
Right.
you know? And
Yeah.
as women, I think we kind of lose ourselves in different ways, whether it's with
Especially when you have
having
children.
kids.
Yes.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
when you're having
Your
children, you have your
identity
kids.
becomes
Yeah,
mom.
that
Like
you
you it's
that
like you
yeah, you have your
lose your
kids. That you
identity
have your kids young. And
and
then
you
you're not
become
even
mom.
that becomes you, you know? And that's hard to I don't know if it's like the right word, kind of like separate from and like individual, like be the individual. You know, so as a woman you lose yourself as a
Yes.
mom. Or if you know, we didn't even like add this, or if you marry young, so you that becomes your whole identity as well.
You
And
become wife
then
or partner.
that.
Yeah.
And when you're young, often sometimes the first person you marry is probably not the right fit because you know you're not growing yet, you don't know who you are yet, you don't know a lot of things. So
And don't
that's why
forget, like, chemically, like, the brain hasn't completely
yes.
fully matured yet. And again, some people have done it and it's successful, but many people have married young and it didn't work out. And it doesn't necessarily mean that's the only reason. No, there are other reasons why people separate, divorce, finances, just differences. But I think that's a really good point that you're raising. Like oftentimes when you marry someone young, you're not fully yourself yet, they're not fully themselves yet, and people marry the person in front of them right now,
Yeah.
not thinking about the person that their partner will become. So you say I do when you get married. You say I do. That is present. But what about later? Will you? Are
Yeah,
you going to
and
continue?
like you bring that up, like what about later? Like, and I
What
think
about
now, like I
later?
said, I'm 33, I will be 34. I think like now I kind of appreciate the age that I'm at, you know, because that brings up like the freezing egg things.
Mm-mm.
I can think about it, I can think it through, I can assess, I can see how I really feel. And I've been doing that for like the last, like I said, the last maybe 2 years, really thinking heavy about it. As a
About your
single
life.
person,
What
like
you, your life. What
what do
you
I envision life? And like right now, at the period of my life as an individual to think on, like, okay, do kids even fit in this picture?
Mm.
No, not right now. Where I'm at, not right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Not
You
for
know?
me, not right now, but soon too. You know, if I'm
I
gonna
don't know.
have a kid, it will need to be soon, like
Soon
before
to
the next 5 years. Like I'm not having kids later. I don't see that for myself. Um, I mean, I think so. You mentioned when your mom had you. I think it's important for me to kind of back up and like call out my mom because she did both. She had me when she was young. She was 23. I
right.
always mess it up. I think it's 22 or 23. One of those. She was young. She was in her early 20s. And then she had my brother. We are 12 years apart. She had him when she was 35, 36. One of those. I believe she became pregnant at 35. She had him at 36. So my mom was a young mom and an older mom. And I saw the
It's
difference
different.
in the upbringing, her mindset, how she handled situations, how she navigated motherhood as a Black woman, as a single mother for different genders, for a boy and a girl. So I seen the differences, which is cool, but also it informed me and influenced my decisions on what I would
That
be willing to do. And so my mindset and my kind of ideas back then was if I'm gonna have a kid, I want to have a kid younger because I was relating my mom's experience and my upbringing. I wanted to mimic that. If I was gonna be a mom, I wanted to be a younger, active mom. I didn't want to be older. But now it's interesting. I've changed my mind.
you
Obviously,
the
time has
your
passed too.
mindset your
Evolved.
mindset
Yes.
involved.
It has evolved. But also like time passed and I can't be a young mom anymore. I'm still young, don't get me wrong. We're still very young. We
I get what
always
you
like
mean.
we joke and we talk, but we're young. We're young. We're just older now. And so like I can't be the 20-year old mom anymore. I have to now reconsider would I be willing, am I open to being a mother in her 30s? And I am, surprisingly. Before I was definitely not. Um, I think it has its pros and its cons. Obviously, there's a little bit of a gap, like an age gap between you and your kids. It's larger. So you're a little bit removed from some experiences of when you were younger. So you may be not able to relate as strongly with your kids as you maybe would be if you were younger. Um, but also, I think you have a lot more wisdom and perspective on life and how decisions can impact you later. So, you know, it's balance. It's balance. But I just for me, I think it's important to mention also I wasn't interested in having kids because of fear. And I had different fears surrounding motherhood. One of them was being like a single parent, a single mother. I did not want. I did not want. I've seen how hard that is. I've seen the struggle, and I didn't want that for myself, and I didn't want that for my child. So that was probably one of the biggest like reasons why
Like
I was
something
a
you
little bit
factor in, right?
resistant. And then
You
finances too. Finances
yeah.
too. So there was a heavy emphasis for me on if I have kids, I need to be able to take care of them, whether
You need
they're
to be
there or not.
you need to be
And
set.
you know what? That informs you
No.
of like the trauma because I was already thinking whether they're there or not. Why did my mind
Mm,
jump to that point, that place of that person being absent? I mean, it's always a possibility, but you see what I mean? Like, it should not have been that much of a factor for me in deciding. But because of my upbringing, it was something that was heavy here. Like, you know, I gotta make sure I'm
it's your
good whether
mind.
they're here or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
that the fear
that's
is
how
is very real sometimes too.
but that like our experience shape us.
Mm-hmm.
And for me right now, like I said, I'm at a different stage of my life. The age thing is a thing for me. Why?
Oh,
Because
it's a thing.
financially, that my career is changing. That,
Yes.
and I really want to enjoy life too. You know what I mean? I've seen my, not just my family, but myself. I work so hard. I want to enjoy the life that I have. I want to travel. I want to experience things.
Yeah.
Um, I want a partner. I
Yeah.
want those things. And like having a kid, I'm not sure if that's just it's not the top anymore. It's just not the top.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. It's not like I need, I must, I want, I desire. It's not, that
Okay.
desire is gone from me. You know,
Oh,
I'm gonna be
that that
34.
that touches my
And
heart. I
not
don't
in a
like
bad,
that for you.
no, I'm
The
in a
reason
bad
for the
way.
audience, they need to know. The audience should know the reason why that, and I don't like that for you is because I know the Tori back then who really wanted that. And so to hear you say that now, it does like
Yeah,
it
like if you
stings a
all,
little bit. Just
yeah,
a little bit.
but
Cause I want that
I
for
made
you.
peace with it because, like, Tasha's right. If you knew me back in college, I was that lover girl, love. I
Heavy.
still love,
Heavy. Yeah.
heavy, but
Heavy.
the desire for kids has changed.
Yeah.
So
And I
I
get
mean,
that. I
I've
respect that.
matured with that.
I
I've matured
respect
with
that,
that.
and I get that
Yeah,
completely. And I want to say, I think it's important to throw out like this disclaimer for this conversation about freezing eggs because we have a few things. I have a few things I want to throw out, a few statistics, numbers to share, and Tori has like some information to share. Like, what does freezing eggs mean? How? Why? Cost? All that. So we're gonna dive into that a little bit soon. But just
yeah,
like a disclaimer before we dive into that, this is just for informational purposes. Okay? Like,
yeah,
we're not here giving you any medical advice. We are not diagnosing you. You want to know more, you have questions, go consult like a medical professional, a trusted professional. That's not our job. I just want to make sure that's clear. We're just talking about our personal experiences, some information that we now understand and have learned about this process and like why it's here on our mind. Why are we talking about that? Because I mean, at the end of the day, we are becoming older. And the reality is sometimes when you become older, you do have to look at some non traditional or alternative routes to get to the same destination. Okay? You might have to do that. I mean, because you may want to have children in your 30s. Maybe you're set, you have your career, you're doing well, you feel healthy, you feel financially stable now, you have a home, you have all that, but you don't have a partner
yeah,
and you want to have kids. Someone is experiencing that, you know, so this is an option. It's a possibility. You know, it's an alternative. So that's why, like, we thought it'd be worth having a conversation because I know there's other people out there that may have thought about it. Maybe you haven't thought about it. Maybe this is to just give you another idea, something to consider. And we're gonna talk about like costs and things like that too, because that's another important factor. Maybe you want to, but costs. Can you afford it? You know? So
yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there. And before we dive too much, I mentioned like obviously I'm a black woman. Um and I'm in my early 30s. So I've had to think about what having children would look like realistically now. I've had to think about it and I've had conversations. Me and Tori have talked about it. Like, would you be open to it? Maybe, maybe not. These are the pros and cons. This is why. Like, I've had conversations about this, and I have not made up my mind yet. But obviously, just talk about
Yeah.
it. I think it's healthy to just consider your options always. And there are other
Yeah.
options too. There's adoption. There's other options too. You're not limited. I never want people to
Oh
feel like they're limited. But
no,
again, informational
I need to
purposes,
jump.
education.
I need to jump in real quick, and I love that you brought up adoption. So you
Yeah.
guys know I'm a social work girly, and I had this amazing internship. Well, hold on, let me lightly tread lightly.
Okay.
Um, yes, it's called Child Family Services Agency. Typically, it's CPS. However, the agency I worked at, the process they also was in like a division for adoption too. So
Okay. Okay.
I had an amazing supervisor, and she let me see the adoption process,
Oh
and I
wow.
cannot explain how unique that experience
Wow.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the adoption process, the care, the love that goes into that. It's just I can't like. I remember this case I had, and it was a father who was trying to adopt a kid, and he was explaining why did this, and just all of that, and then like it's a team, they kind of like filter or whatever, and just seeing that how much he cared, I was like, that. So like you don't see the behind the scenes stuff of the people who adopt kids. They're really like they love their kids. They adore their kids, and they went through a lot to adopt those kids.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not even like I'm not shying away from adoption.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing. It really is.
Okay.
So now we need to dive into this topic: freezing the eggs.
Yes.
So the cost of freezing the eggs is very expensive, especially if you don't have insurance. And if your insurance is not like at the top
Yeah.
or whatever, it's expensive. So I want to like start with this. This is light research. So if I'm
Yeah.
not accurate, please feel free to include in the comments.
Yeah.
I know it varies state by state as well.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
this is just a general research. So the
Mhm.
cost of freezing your egg, let's just say we're doing it out of pocket. It could start from 8,000 to 30,000 per cycle,
That's
and
money.
that's
That's
just
bag.
one. That's a
That's bag.
that's a huge bag drop. And for some people, that's the salary a year for some people.
That is so
Not everyone
true.
has a college
Preach.
degree,
Yeah.
just 30K.
Yeah.
Now, that does not always like include for again, like I said, it varies from state to state, like the extracting the eggs, um, freezing them, the liquid nitrogen from that, like all of that is like it's a bill, it's a bill, it's a bill, it's a bill, it's a different
The
bill for each
consultation,
thing.
the consultation, um,
Consultation,
all of that.
um,
The surgical like procedure of like removing the eggs, the medication.
the
Um,
medication,
yeah,
all of
yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's it's,
So
it's a lot,
typically
and
the 8 to 30K typically should include, but it may not. That's what you're saying?
it
It's a
it
possibility.
depends on the fertility like place you go
The
to,
clinic.
the
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
the procedure. Do they make you go to a different location for this and this and this? It really like it just depends. It
Mm-hmm.
depends. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Yeah.
lot of money. And then like if you do the first cycle and the first cycle doesn't work, you might have to do a second cycle, and that's another
That's
thirty
a
k.
separate cost. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
expensive. It's hard.
Oh yeah. Very. It's very expensive. And not to jump back to adoption, But I think it's worth mentioning that adoption also costs money. It's not cheap. It's thousands of dollars. Very
Yes.
expensive.
Well, when I interned for family service agency, I now this was a few years ago, but you didn't have to pay the adoption fee. No, however, because these are kids from, like, depending the situation, from abused home. It just depends. It depends on the situation. I got to experience. Have you heard of Safe Haven? This
No,
Safe Haven
I
is
don't think
when
so.
the babies are dropped off at, like, either a church or a fire station or whatever. So
It's giving
some
This
kids,
Is Us, the TV show. Randall from This Is Us, you know, the TV show?
yes, yes,
That it's
yes, yes.
giving, yes. And I love that show, by the way. If you haven't watched it, please do. It's so heartfelt. Oh my gosh. You will cry a lot. You will cry. Mhm. Yeah.
So some cases with child family services agencies, you do get kids, like infants, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not always the case. It just depends.
Okay.
So
Fair.
with often kids the ages 5 to 18 don't get adopted, and they age out in the system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
another thing. So adoption, it really is honestly great. And I remember, like, to bring back again, adoption day, when I went, um, I cried a little. But
Yeah.
I remember, one kid spoke and he said, "Thank God for my dad adopting me when I was 17." And
Wow.
um, I was gonna age out, and I was gonna age out, and I wasn't going to be successful, but because of my dad, he got me in school. He gave me a home. My dad was the reason that I was applying to colleges the following year, and now, because of him, oh, I have goosebumps. Because of him, I now have a forever home. So for Christmas, I have a place to go. For
That's
holidays, I have a
beautiful.
place to go. I have a family
Yeah.
to really enjoy life with, and I wasn't gonna have that future. But thank God my dad was willing to adopt me at 17. So
Wow.
adoption
Look
is a
at
beautiful
God.
thing.
Man.
I'm not knocking that.
No.
So yeah.
No. I
Um. So
1000%
freezing your eggs is
support.
expensive. Freezing your
Yes.
eggs.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
back to that, just kind of freezing your eggs is
It's
expensive,
expensive.
and the
You know, you gotta
process.
have money. And that's not including raising that
Yeah,
child, because raising the child costs money too, you know?
yeah.
So the idea of
And if
having children is a real one, and it's a financial one. And I hate that there's so much emphasis on money, but like realistically, having children is a financial decision, it's an investment. You should be thinking about that. Like, realize that it does come with financial impact. So, you know, don't be
yeah,
oblivious to that. Like, I know when you're younger, a lot of the times you don't think about how much it costs to raise a child. You just want the kid, and they're so cute, and you have baby fever, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I want my own. And yeah, that's nice, but you know, you got to take care of and pay off and cover, you know, the things that child will need too. You got to feed that child too. Like, they need clothes, and they're going to become sick sometimes, and like it comes with costs. So, you know, just
I mean, um, for me, like, the freezing the eggs and all of that. Like I said, right now I'm not at the career stage I want to
even if
be
I
at.
wanted to.
Right, even if I wanted to, I don't have 30,000 shilling in the bank, babe. I don't.
No.
And if And what if I have to do it again if it doesn't work? You know what I mean? And it's not
And the
even just
mental
that. Can I
health
emotionally
impact
handle that
too.
alone?
That, 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 because like
Can
you
I
said, it's a
emotionally
real
alone?
possibility. It's a real possibility that it may not be successful the first try. So yes, I'm sure there's like a therapy component that needs to be part of that process to like prepare you emotionally and mentally to navigate that, because I'm sure it's very similar to experiencing a loss, you know?
Then
Um,
you grieve that process. You
right.
grieve what you could have
Could
had.
have.
And I think it brings back to my point again, like just being single. Do I really want to do that alone? Can I emotionally handle that alone? And I think, like you said, our upbringing does factor in a lot
Mhm.
of things.
Yeah,
And
it
like
does.
my mom was a single mom, and I saw her do it, and I saw how hard it was to do that. Life
Yeah.
was lifing for mom heavy, and like she got it, and she got us. For a long time it was just me and mom till I had my
Mm.
siblings. But yeah, I saw and I look back, mom sacrificed a lot. Could I do that alone? Me? Do I want to do that alone?
That, do you
No,
want to? Do you have the
no.
capacity to do it? And, you mentioned something that made me think, like, when it comes to Black womanhood and Black motherhood, like, this conversation sometimes can be a little bit taboo and have
It
like
is.
stigma kind of attached to it, because like, there's this idea, this old archaic idea of like your womanhood is tied to and directly related to if you can have children. Fertility is not really something I remember being talked about within my family or around, my mom and my aunts and my grandparents. Like, no, it was no conversations about things like that. It wasn't like,
And I
most
have to.
can have
You
children
bring up
naturally and just,
you bring up family. I had to be really honest. Like here, like besides you, besides Tisha, I don't think even with my other female friends we talk about this stuff. Like in the
mm,
deaf community, I don't hear about it at
no,
all.
no,
I don't
no.
hear about it at all. Like I
That's
have
true.
friends that are moms. I have friends that are moms, yes. But
Right.
I
Like,
don't
not
like
conversations about fertility,
not the conversation.
fertility and like alternative options and, different ways to achieve having children and like
Yeah.
possibilities that I just feel like there's a default, like either you're gonna have children or you're not. But sometimes that's not always the case, and that's not always your situation, and your circumstances don't always
Yeah.
allow for that. You know, maybe you don't have a partner, or maybe you can, like, your body physically can't have children naturally on its own, because that's someone's reality too. And so I just feel like, going back to what I was saying, like, this is a real thing. It doesn't come up often, at least from my experience within like my family. Like, it doesn't come up in conversations often. But like, the reality is, white women, they have the advantage when it comes to health care early in their life and later. So like, the types of jobs and careers that we get don't always provide the same level of care and like health insurance. Does your insurance cover these kinds of services? Maybe not. Maybe not. So even if it's like realistically something you want to, take advantage of, do you have access to it? Do you have access to like adequate health care and reproductive care? Do you? Oftentimes, Black women, women of color don't always have that. And then
Don't
there's like
have
just a lack of trust
you.
too.
You're highlighting a very, very, very important thing. And I used to want to be an OBGYN, and I
You
researched this
should
topic,
have.
and I
You
used
should
to want to be
have.
an OBGYN.
Yeah.
And often
Because we
women
need
of
more.
color
We
like
need more
don't
women
have
of
like
color in those
a
fields.
doctor that they can have like conversations and bring up their concerns, like a
Right.
doctor that like looks like them.
Right.
And that information, even on social media, it's still very hard to find, which is why I feel like I hope that this episode we kind of
Touch
highlight
on
some
different
taboos that we need to remove.
aspects. Yeah. Because there's so many different
We
things
have
as it
to.
relates to this conversation. There's so many different things that can come up, and we've only called out a few of them, but there's so much
There's
more to
so
like
many
peel back. Like there's depth to this conversation, and we're just mentioning it because there's some things that come up and that have come to mind, and some things that impact you or directly impact me and have impacted my decisions and my thought process, and why haven't I, would I, am I open, all of that. There's many different reasons. I think one of the
layers.
yes, many different layers. And I think one of the most, because I mentioned fear earlier, but I didn't mention this one, and I held it for a reason because it's dark and it's not easy to talk about, but the mortality rate for Black women in
It's
childbirth
higher.
is
It's higher.
high. It's so high. That is terrifying. To
Mm-hmm.
You could
Which
die
again,
bringing life.
yeah.
That's
Which again, I'm
terrifying.
saying you had to. You which again, I'm saying that's why you have to be careful with the doctor you pick, and that takes time. That takes research, and you can't just pick anyone. Hello, it's your
Yeah,
body, babe. Which is
so
why I
true.
feel like. Which is why I feel like in the deaf community, uh, BIPOC too, we need to be sharing this information. We can't be gatekeeping this information. It's so important. So I really
It
hope that
is.
this episode highlights that, and we have the conversations in the comments because we need to. As
We do. We do.
we have to. We
We
have to.
do. Like when we talk about things like this, the reality is like the morality rate for me is 2 times higher than white women and Hispanic women. So that means me and you. I'm more likely to face complications and potentially like moral. Whoa, that's huge.
Like
So when you ask me if I want to have children, I got to think about that. We're not necessarily in the same boat. So, like, these are big conversations. These are
mhm.
like, it could be life and
my
death.
mom, like I said, my mom had me young. You know, my mom's a young mom. My mom's Latina, and then she's at her first birth with me. Was scary. It was a traumatic experience. It
Yeah.
was.
Yes.
Again, that's why I said like we can't be gatekeeping this information. So
Yeah.
if you guys know of doctors, if you know of like resources for people of color, please like share them in the comments. That's where Tasha and I always say this,
Wrap it
like,
up.
this is a
Mm.
community we're trying to build.
Mm-hmm.
So in the comments, you got something to share, let us know. Let the audience know.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about wrapping up here? I think
Wrap it up. Wrap it up, girl.
this can become a little bit of a mini series. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, this was a good episode. So
Yeah.
until next time, bye.
Mm.